Wildcats Revenge is the brand new RMC Hybrid coaster at Hershey Park, and to say this coaster blew me away would be an understatement. The coaster exceeded all of my expectations tenfold, and in this review, I am going to be breaking down the coaster as well as giving my thoughts and overall final score at the end. So let's jump right into the presentation of the coaster. Even before you get inside the park, Wildcat can be seen towering over everything else on that side of the park, making the coaster look huge. Once you actually get over to the ride's area, the way they have the whole area laid out once again makes the ride look huge, due to the path leading to the entrance being uphill, which means you are looking at the coaster from a lower angle than the station. To your side, you will get an excellent view of the 20G rolls and the overbank turn in between them, which really adds a lot of energy to the area. Right behind this is the massive station building and lift structure. The station has the coaster's name on the side of it, as well as a giant claw mark right underneath the name, which just looks super cool. And speaking of the name and branding, the ride's entrance has one of the coolest logos I have seen, as well as an old piece of track from the original Wildcat. The inside of the station is quite nice as well, featuring a cool mural on the wall that has 3 different Wildcats that are on the front of the 3 trains respectively, as well as the station having a banging rock theme playing, which really amps you up for your ride. The soundtrack is actually the music you're hearing in the background right now. The lead car on each train has one of 3 Wildcat heads breaking through the front of them, and I know some people don't really like these trains, but personally I love them. For me, I think they look super cool and are very unique in terms of design, especially when compared to other RMC coasters. Other than that, the ride has no theming, but they did do an excellent job on the nighttime lighting. The coaster has several spotlights on different sections of the layout, which makes the structure turn this deep red color. All around, this ride just looks fantastic. I'm giving presentation a 9 out of 10. Before we take our ride, let's first take a walk through the queue and see how it is to wait in. Now, during my visit to the park, I actually got to do both the general and fast track queue experience, so I'd say I have a pretty good feel for the queue setup. The general queue and fast track queue are both right next to each other and honestly follow the same path, except that the general queue goes into a medium-sized cattle pen about halfway through. And if the line is all the way to the end of the cattle pen, it'll take about 30 or 35 minutes until you get on the ride. This cattle pen is shaded due to trees all around the area, so it isn't super hot while standing there. The rest of the queue goes right alongside the ride's layout, giving some amazing views of the coaster, and this part leads to the double-sided lockers, which are free and have plenty of room to store a bag or something like that. The only thing to remember is that you will have to keep in mind both your locker number and locker password while you're on the ride. So just keep that in mind, because you don't want to forget those since it will be a pain to get back. The last thing I want to touch on is that this line moves at a consistent pace due to the 3-train service and the separate load and unload station. So I'm going to give the queue line a 7 out of 10. Due to it not being as bad to wait in, but it isn't the greatest. With all that out the way, let's take our seat and dive right into the ride experience. You exit the station and immediately enter the ride's twisted triple down, which when in the back car of the train will actually give a small moment of airtime on each of the small dips. This then twists you up into the 140-foot lift hill. At first you will crawl up the lift hill, but once the train ahead of you has cleared the final brake run, you will speed up to a normal pace before you are thrown down the first drop. Now, out of the RMCs I have experienced, I'll say this is one of the weaker ones, but it does still give those in the back of the train an intense moment of ejector airtime, and a moment of floater for those in the front of the train. Pulling out of the drop, you'll get hit by a strong moment of positive G's before you whip up into the world's tallest step-up underflip, which gives a powerful moment of whip to anyone in the front half of the train, and a moment of hang time to those in the back half of the train. While this element is probably the weakest on the ride, it still provides a super fun combination of forces and flows really well in the layout. Dropping out of the inversion, you whip up into one of the strongest moments of airtime on the coaster with the camelback. This single element absolutely throws you out of your seat and straight into your restraint. The strength of the airtime is on par with the triple camelbacks on Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. One more thing is that the exit of this hill has a terrifying head chopper with the supports of the 0G stall, which just adds to the element's intensity. Following this, you go through a small twisted step up, which gives everyone a quick pop of ejector airtime, before you curve up into the first wave turn. This wave turn is very high off the ground and is not as sustained, but it absolutely flings you out of your seat due to the very aggressive shaping of the element. While you are being ejected from your seat, you are also pinned to the right of the train because of the speed in which you take the turn. This leads into a lateral-filled twisting drop back down to ground level, which twists you up into the 0G stall. And oh boy, is this stall amazing. Before this, the only stall from RMC I had done was Iron Gwazi, and well, that stall is just kind of there, which is why this stall blew me away with its several seconds of sustained inverted floater airtime. One thing I found interesting is how different it felt from Pantheon's stall, because that stall had more of a feeling where you were hanging upside down, while Wildcats felt like you were floating upside down. And this feeling is exactly what made it my favorite inversion on the ride. You absolutely whip out of the stall, getting a lateral ejector pop when in the back of the train, and you haul into the second wave turn, which is a lot lower than the first. This second wave turn is taken with a lot more speed than the first, and because of this, you get an even stronger moment of ejector airtime, while simultaneously being slammed to the left of the train. And it is this combination of forces that made this element my favorite on the ride, and what I believe to be tied for the most intense moment of airtime on the coaster. Exiting this wave turn, you slam back into your seat and continue being pinned to the left side of the train, before you whip up into a double down. But instead of the element being a normal straight double down, it instead has an unbanked right turn in between the downs. This single turn takes the element from being a good double down to one of the most insane and shocking coaster elements I have ever experienced. Now keep in mind that coming into this element, you are pinned to the left side of the train. Then midair, you are flung to the right side of the train while you are still floating out of your seat, and you are then flown out of your seat again on the second dip. This leads into the third inversion, which is a super snappy 0G roll that pins you to the left side of the train, as well as it will pop you out of your seat. You twist out the roll and through a helix with an overbank turn halfway through, and I actually grayed out after the overbank on the majority of my 22 rides. But wasting no time, you whip through the fourth and final inversion, which is a floaty 0G roll right underneath the underroll. This roll is a lot less whippy and more floaty, which makes it feel different enough to the other roll so it isn't repetitive. Now for the finale. This starts off with a lateral twist down to ground level before you rocket over a tiny bunny hill, delivering a super strong moment of ejector airtime to everyone across the train. You twist out of this hill and over one last bunny hop before you slam to a stop on the final brakes. One thing to note real quick is that the last little hop has one last lateral jolt to the right, just before you slam to a stop. This ride doesn't have a single dead moment throughout the entire layout, and not only that, it has some of the most insane pacing ever, and the only ride I can think of that has pacing like this ride is Iron Gwazi, just based off the rate that both of them fly from element to element. With all that being said, I'm going to give the ride experience a 10 out of 10. Wildcats Revenge uses the normal RMC Hybrid trains, but these have the lightning rod style grab bars, as well as something I can only describe as looking like the handle you hold onto when riding one of the mechanical bulls things. The trains themselves are comfortable for me, but I can see how they can be a bit uncomfortable if you have longer legs. The ride itself is super smooth in terms of how the train rides along the track, but I can see how someone could find lateral moments during the double down and final bunny hill uncomfortable. But personally, I didn't have a problem with it. I'm getting comfort a 9 out of 10. The only reason the ride isn't getting a perfect 10 for comfort is after about 10 or so rides, my shins were hurting from how the shin guard sat on my legs, but that's more just a testament to how strong the ride's airtime is. Wildcats Revenge statistical final score comes out to an 8.7 out of 10. My personal score is absolutely a 10 out of 10, just due to the ride's unbelievable ride experience, and more specifically how the coaster took everything I love in a ride and put it in the one coaster. I'm not going to say where in my rankings Wildcat slots in, but all you need to know is it is super high in my top 10 coasters. Hershey Park completely knocked it out of the park with this addition, and has further pushed Hershey Park into the elite group of parks in America. That's all I have for this week, so be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm attempting to hit 300 subscribers before the end of the year, so if you can help me out with that, it would mean the world to me. I'll see you all next week for a new video. Bye for now.